And welcome to this week's episode of MSTV. A warm welcome to one of our newest family members, jerkfit.com. Make sure you check out this really cool ad that's going to air right on this very program. But after a quick break, we sit down with none other than Sugar Shawn Ray. Now, Shawn Ray, probably one of the biggest names in this industry, both as a competitor and as a journalist. I worked with him when we both were at MD for a while. It seemed to be that he took a dislike to me for a little while and blocked me on Twitter. And when we spoke backstage at the Arnold Classic 2 years ago, he didn't remember why he blocked me. So I was like, I've always spoken highly of you. I don't know why the fuck you would block me. So basically, it was kind of one of those things. And then I saw him at the Olympia this year, and I was goofing around and said, hey, you still didn't unblock me yet? So he reached out to me, and he said, you know, let's talk. And we spoke, and he's doing his own thing now, ShawnRay.tv. And so basically, it was water under the bridge. It was probably more or less related to when I got fired by MD, he was still with them, so he still was defending them while I was shitting all over them. And then I was posting the stuff where I interviewed Lee Thompson, so obviously, you know, in his position, he had to be totally against all of that, even giving anyone a platform that would speak against the IFBB. So it was never anything personal between Shawn and I. We got along well. I mean, I used to, you know, help promote his Shawn Ray Classic, and when I worked there on the Facebook pages that I had say over with that company. But I do not throw him any softballs. We saw that recently. Softball question and interview. No such thing as softballs on MSM. Well, maybe after we jerk off a lot. But you have to also realize we asked Shawn Ray the type of questions that nobody else was going to ask him. And to his credit, he fucking answered them like a champ. And I have to really kudos, Shawn, because you could have been like, I'm not going anywhere near there. I asked him some tough questions about federations and things like that. And Shawn, man, it was a lot of fun because that's basically how the whole interview was going. And we had a great time talking. It lasted almost an hour, so I had to edit a lot of it down. I didn't take any of his words out of there. It was just more crosstalk shit that I had to edit just so it would be easier to watch. I didn't want to make this fucking thing take your whole goddamn afternoon, all right? So we show that right after this quick break, but we also, of course, more of our Olympia stuff. And thank you once again to oldschooliron.com for being the title sponsor of our Olympia coverage this year. And more good stuff from the hosts of your favorite weekly variety program, MSTV. We'll be right back after this quick break. Right now, I'd like to welcome Sugar Shawn Ray to Muscle Sport TV for the first time. Shawn, welcome to the program.
Hey, man, it's good to be here. Finally a free agent, can do my own thing, so here I am.
I like the sound of that, man. ShawnRay.tv. How did this whole thing come about, bro?
Well, it's part of the evolution, I think. When you live long enough, opportunity presents itself in the strangest ways, Joe. I mean, I started out working exclusively with Joe Weider back in 1987, coming right off the national championship, signing an exclusive agreement to work solely for Weider Enterprise for 17 years. And as that started to kind of change the course, I wound up with Steve Bleckman. And then actually before Steve, it was Robert Kennedy, also Mag International, then Steve Bleckman. And then Generation Iron. And as those things started to evolve, we moved from the print into the digital area. And I watched Dan Solomon come over to Muscular Development and go on to Digital Muscle, and Dave Palumbo go on to RX Muscle, yourself. I mean, eventually we're going to get to an age where we start wanting to take control of our future and our destiny.
Sure.
Because I'm global. I'm all over the place. I decided, why not now? I was working for people that hired me because of my wisdom, but I think they wanted to tell me what to do. And you know what that's like when you're smarter than some other people and they tell you what to do. It's you kind of take your ball and you go home. Yeah, it doesn't work. And it's a blessing in disguise. No hard feelings, because there's some content, some creativity that I wasn't able to implement. And now, because of my relationships, because of my globalization in terms of travel, and because of the other moving parts with all the sponsors I deal with and all the promoters I deal with, I'm able to grab some content and athletes and do some promotions that I wouldn't have been able to do working for someone else.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think if anybody in this industry, you mentioned a few names, you said Dave and Dan. I mean, there's only a handful of guys in this industry, I think, that could pull this off and be successful doing that. And you're definitely one of them. Guy like Dan Solomon, to me, I have the utmost respect for. I enjoyed working with him at MD, and as you as well. At the time that I was there, you guys were both there. The thing I like about what Shawn Ray brings to the table is obviously your experience in being a pro bodybuilder and being one of the, unnamed Mr. Olympias for all, for lack of a better term.
Or the People's Champion.
Yeah, there you go. Definitely would have been a People's Champion if they had that little thing going on back then. But definitely what I like about you is you got fucking balls and you call it like you see it. Like the whole thing with Dallas McCarver, with the thing in Pittsburgh and stuff. And I thought I agree with you, number one, about your assessment of how that went, and that you're not afraid to tell people what to do. And like you mentioned on the Palumbo interview with Kevin Levrone, that he was a little, miffed with you for a little while after he was making this comeback.
A full year.
So to me, you bring that element to the table where you can be do a critiquing of somebody because you've been there, done that, which is very unique in this bodybuilding industry, because you don't really see that as much. And I know you're a fan of other sports, and that's where I'm from, is from regular mainstream sports writing. And I like what you said, because you said it's like, you said it during the Dave interview, checks and balances, where bodybuilder can give another bodybuilder that type of critique. How do you feel as far as federation-wise checks and balances? It seems to me that there is a big lacking empty space of that in this industry, where I covered the New York Jets for a number of years, and when they sucked, I ripped them, and I tore them a new ass. They didn't say I can't get credentialed for them, but that doesn't work the same way with bodybuilding.
How you doing? My name is John Sikoris, and this is Shooey Sikoris, and we're the owners of Titan Medical Center.
That doesn't work the same way with bodybuilding.
Well, let me tell you, there's so many moving parts. And mind you, again, I work with Joe Weider on a handshake deal for 16 out of the 17 years. We had one contract, but it was lucrative for both of us. So that was mutual respect. For Steve Bleckman, we had a 1-year deal, and it wound up being a 10-year working relationship. And with Jim Mannion, I met him when I was 17 years old. Rafael Santoja, I met him surreptitiously through Ben Weider along the circuit, but eventually emceeing his shows over in Brazil and working with him over in Spain. When you're dealing with a federation, Joe, I think it's different, because you cannot, and mind you, freedom of speech, I live by. You saw me in my last Olympia, 2001.
Yeah.
Wayne DeMillia is the president. I'm calling him out right in front of everyone. I was calling for the judges' names on the scores. I was calling for privacy. The judges, I got off the panel because she already had a preconceived set notion that no one can beat Ronnie going in. I'm like, well, if that's your perception, you shouldn't you just disqualified yourself. You're both
absolutely.
Protected. He's a friend of yours. So you're right. I don't have a filter when it comes to calling things as they are. Now, there is a limitation on how far I want to push that because, mind you, I work within the context of the Federation. I'm a critic to a degree, and the federational problems I have, I take it to the people that can make the changes. I don't take it to Twitter. I don't take it to Instagram. I don't take it to a freaking radio podcast show and talk shit.
Yeah.
I'd rather contact the promoter or contact the president. I'll call Jim Mannion. I would contact Ben Weider and Joe Weider, and I would express the changes I want. When I retired from bodybuilding in 2003, I became the athlete's representative.
Yeah.
I had to get a majority of signatures to do it for a position that wasn't even in existence. They didn't want Wayne DeMillia did not want an athlete rep because he knew if he had an athlete rep in Shawn Ray, I'd be asking for change, and that change is hard to come by when you're dealing with old, established people that don't want change.
Yep.
So the change that you might be able to witness and come back to your podcast and just rant about, you're not trying to solve the problem because you're not talking to the audience that can actually make the change. So the Federation may get mad at you or get miffed at Dave Palumbo or whatever talking head there is. But the difference with me is the change I try to implement from the observations of whatever malcontent we have, I would take it to the people that can make the change. That's where the respect comes from. Jim Mannion respects the idea that, look, I wanted change. I wanted all the athletes to be paid that competed in Mr. Olympia. 1, because they qualified. 2, because the Olympia was going to use their name, likeness, and identity to promote sales. And 3, because if I have to qualify for the Olympia by winning another pro show, then when I get to the Olympia, I should have a guarantee. Well, I fought for that in 2003. And in 2004, every athlete on that stage got $4,000 from 11th place on down. Prior to that, it was only the top 10. And mind you, Joe, I was in the top 10 for 12 top 5 for 12 consecutive years.
Sure.
I shouldn't be paying attention to the guys that aren't getting any money. I don't want to call them schleps because they were the best in the world and they qualified just like I had to.
Yeah.
But when I was retired, I saw the huge disparity, and I was passionate enough to go, look, let me reach back and help these cats out. I got the majority of the signatures. Some of the athletes were told, don't vote for Shawn Ray as an athlete's rep. Well, he's trouble. And you don't need an athlete's rep. Represent yourself. And the bodybuilder's like, what side do I come down on? Do I come down on the Federation side that doesn't want an athlete rep? Or do I go down with Shawn Ray because Shawn Ray's actually fighting for the shit that I need? And so there was some polarization. Some of the athletes came with me. Some of the athletes turned against me. But I got a majority decision, and I wound up in there. And from being the athlete's rep, I was able to make sure that all these athletes got paid for the short time that it lasted. The second year, they got $2,000. The third year, it went back to just paying the top 10. While the prize money increased overall, and the divisions expanded with bikini and physique and classic, that was great that they were adding all these new divisions, but they went back to the old way, which is only paying the elite, and the other guys were just fucking pace cars on the racetrack. So to get back to your point, the Federation has a right to silence the guys that are out there talking shit that aren't really trying to make change. They're just bitch moaning and complaining because they see something they don't agree with. But you may not also understand the context for what's happening. And now that we've had this divorce between the IFBB Pro League and the IFBB Pro Elite, there's even more confusion. I mean, do you not think that it's egregious that Mr. Olympia gets $400,000 and 212 gets $40,000?
It's terrible.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It is. It's a terrible. But have you heard one athlete complain? Have you heard James Flex Lewis, the winner of 7 of those, say one thing about the disparity in that prize money? I've never heard it on record.
No, it hasn't.
Okay, so who am I to complain? If the champion's not complaining and fighting, if the champion's not complaining and fighting for the equality, and if the other guys that are getting the crumbs after that in the 212 division aren't arguing the fact that, look, we train just as hard as they do, we should have some, equality. It's not going to happen. Women's tennis fought harder to get their pay up to what the men were getting than what the 212 classic and regular physique are not doing in relationship to what the open pros are getting. Okay, so that's not an argument I even want to get in, because if the athlete doesn't give a shit, why should I?
It's a great point.
So the other side is, why am I going to turn around as a federation leader and give you, the critic, a press pass to come to cover one of my shows where you're just going to talk shit and rip it apart? Why don't you talk about some of the things that have changed? For example, we did come up with the money to create the classic physique. We did create the men's physique, where now we've got super celebrities. Jeremy Buendia says he's the savior of men's physique. Well, he's not the savior. Jim Mannion's the savior. He created it, and that's where all the respect and all the proper should go to. That's the same Jim Mannion that's catching flack for things that need to be changed that haven't been changed. But you know what? It does take a village. And if you don't understand the globalization of having to start planting all these shows in all of these countries that the NPC wasn't in, I mean, think about it, Joe. I emceed the muscle contest in Ireland, which is an IFBB Pro qualifier. We have one over in Brazil. We had Bob Chick's got an opportunity now promoting shows over in England.
Yeah.
I mean, so for all of the flaws that the Federation has, it's literally creating careers and opportunity for athletes that otherwise wouldn't have had them. If Jim Mannion did not break away from the IFBB Pro Elite and start having these IFBB Pro qualifiers on a global scale over in Korea, over in Japan. You know who's promoting the one in Japan? Hitatari Yamagishi, the former Arnold Classic 212 champion. All right, he didn't make a ton of money as a 212 bodybuilder, but he's going to create a career promoting shows over in Japan. I mean, these shows, Joe, sometimes can go longer than we live. You know, Joe Weider died in 2010, and we just celebrated the 53rd Mr. Olympia competition. So Joe's dead and gone, and the show still lives on, and it's created opportunities for the supplement company and you and I to talk about the biggest contest in the world. So we got to be mindful that there are some flaws in the Federation, but the Federation is still providing opportunity for us to make a living.
No, absolutely. And you come up with a great point where you said that you would bring that criticism to the right person, not to.
That's it. That's the key, Joe.
Oh yeah, no, without a doubt. I totally agree with you, and I see exactly what you're saying with that, and a perfect answer for that. I'm going to throw another one at you. I understand that you know, if you cover the IFBB, you're not allowed to cover other federations, and that's something that, as a sports writer, I always found a little bit odd because you're covering the sport of bodybuilding.
Yeah,
I'm not covering just one entity of that sport. I'm covering it as a whole. So if I wanted to cover another show, I don't care, whatever it could be. It doesn't have to be the Raphael. I understand there's bad blood, and that's for obvious reasons. But let's just say, for argument's sake, there was a natural show that I wanted to cover that I wouldn't anyway. But if I did want to cover that, I would get flack because I'm covering a non-NPC/IFBB event when, I'll give you an example. ESPN has a huge contract with the NFL.
Right.
They also show the CFL on one of their affiliates, TSN.
Yeah, I mean, we're comparing apples and oranges here, Joe. Let me just. Just tell you that you're talking about a network that has sponsorships from beer companies, from tobacco companies. I mean, it's a bigger entity, so it's really not an issue with respect to freedom to cover anything and everything. You can maybe get a press pass to cover badminton and cover CFL and the NFL. That's cool.
Yeah.
I think what you're talking about is there's still a certain amount of real estate you have to protect, and that the Federation has built, and certainly don't want to be pilfered through the comparisons of NABA, WABA, GBO, all these other alphabet soups. They don't want you to use their platform to then go and promote someone else's platform. So I know that if it was my federation, I want my people that want to cover my sport. It's a tight circle. I'll give my press passes to who I want because it's mine. You can't tell me that just because you're a media guy, you deserve a media pass. No,
of course not. No.
Okay, so if you know that aspect of it, who are you going to complain to? I mean, if you're going to go cover the GBO, go cover the NABA, go cover the Natural, then why even bother covering the NPC or the IFBB? If the tone is we want to use people that are supporting our agenda. Now, the criticism comes from going to the top of the food chain, not from writing or ranting or videoing. I mean, that happens all the time. And in this day and age, you need freaking Tom, Dick, and Harry that's got an iPhone can create a YouTube channel and use it because their press badge wasn't in an ideal situation, and they're standing behind a pole or they're looking at a photographer's head. Look, the reason that it's so big right now is because the Federation has taken ownership over how it's marketed and how it's promoted. And the critics are on the outside looking in, but you're not going to have a seat at the table if all you're going to do is sit there and criticize how we build it. Mm-hmm. And that's why, me being one of the biggest critics, I've been able to coexist with these guys because I talk to them. I don't have a YouTube channel where I'm talking to strange people about the fact that I didn't get a backstage pass or I didn't get a press badge, and that's where you have people that are really discontented. If you want to cover all these other things, and I tell you, no, you can't cover mine because you're covering all those other things, that's where it should end. Why coming back here to rant to strangers isn't going to get you a press badge in my federation. Find out how to coexist. I think that's what media guys have to do. And if your focus is on the growth and the expansion of the NPC IFBB Pro League, then you need to find a way to integrate yourself in there so that you can have access to the growth and also share the fruits of the labor. So people say I bitch, moan, and complain a lot. I do when it's an injustice, but complaining about coverage, like I'm not really interested in covering a NABA show. I'm not really interested in covering a natural show. I'm interested in covering the NPC. Why? My first show was NPC at 17. I became an NPC Teenage National Champion. I won the NPC Overall National Championships, and it gave me an IFBB Pro card, which launched me into the Mr. Olympia, which 17 years later, I'm covering all of these shows and having a living as a result of all of that. So what did the NABA do for me? What did GBO do for me? I mean, did these even Musclemania? They weren't even on my radar. So I'm in the media, but what they're doing doesn't interest me. And if it interests somebody like yourself or another roving reporter, then it's the differences are you're just not as close to the action as I am, because I know the people that started it. The NPC started in 1982. Lee Haney was the first national champion. Jim Mannion fought hard and tirelessly against the AAU, joined forces with the NPC or with the IFBB to create, the opportunity for us to go pro. Remember, you had to go through the universe to win the overall. You had to go through the universe and all that. I mean, there's so much evolution, and I've witnessed it all. And the people that did it all, they created a livelihood for me. So I have a certain amount of allegiance to covering it properly and being thankful for that opportunity. But I still hold their asses accountable when I see some injustice. I mean, it was critical to me to have those judges put their names to their scores. It was critical for me to get those athletes rewarded financially. I had to ask about, the prize money. And now that I'm no longer competing, naturally I'm not so concerned about the prize money. I know if I was a 212-pound pro, which is what I was, I'd be screaming from the top. If I'm James Flex Lewis and I get my $40,000 check and I look over at Phil Heath, who I probably, James could probably give Phil a run for the money.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
There's a couple of those guys he could beat. Guess what? If he was third in the Mr. Olympia, he would have made more there than winning the 212.
Absolutely, yeah.
If I'm James Flex Lewis, I'm going to go win the 212 and I'm going to compete in the Open on the same freaking night. I would be arguing for the opportunity to cross over, right? So if you're fat and happy and you're better off being the champion and getting a smaller paycheck, as a media person, why am I going to bring up that story? It's a non-story because the champion's not making it an issue. The fans don't care because it's not being brought to anyone's attention. So I just think, Joe, in the media, we got to pick and choose our battles. That's not really something that the federation even gives a crap about. Like, look, go cover those other federations if that's what you want to do. But if you want to cover ours, cover ours.
I've been credentialed on and off for the Mr. Olympia, the Arnold, going back from when I formed this company in 2008. When I worked for Flex, I obviously was going to those shows. When I worked for MD, I was going to those shows under their umbrella. So I've gone under 3 different the organizations to cover it. I'm at the point where I don't really cover shows because to me there's so many people out there, even a guy like yourself. I can't compete with a guy like you covering a show, in my opinion. So what I'm trying to do is I'm covering more of the event. I'm covering the counterculture. The bodybuilding world has really opened up because of, I'll use the term YouTubers.
Okay.
I mean, that's probably not the best term to use, but I think that's kind of what we all been kind of saying for these guys. The guys like a Rich Piana, like a Boston Lloyd, those type of guys, where I have these guys writing columns. Greg Valentino, he and I have been working together for many, many years. He left for a little while. He's back with me now. And see, that's the type of coverage I've been getting. So I don't cover, I just use that as an example, covering a natty show. I could give 2 shits about the GBO, about whatever. I don't cover shows. I cover events. I cover people. I got a little edginess to my coverage. It's a little out there. It's a lot of female bodybuilding, adult-oriented stuff. So I'm not losing any sleep over not getting credentialed to the Olympia because I got what I needed there anyway.
Yeah. Like I was. I was a physique artist. I come from a different era. When I was a kid looking at bodybuilding, I'm looking at Muhammad Makaway. I'm looking at Samir Banu. I'm looking at Bob Paris.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Frank Zane. Look at who I was looking at. Those guys were physique artists.
Sure.
And then here comes Lee Haney, and then I see Gaspari come with the graininess and the glutes, and then I see Dorian Yates come in, and I see Akam Albrecht, and I see Jean-Pierre Fuchs. Mostly people don't know these names. And then along comes Gunther Schlierkamp. And these guys are suddenly morphing into something that's not what I signed up for. And by the time I get to 2001, I don't see anybody that looks like the guys that I used to admire. Flex Wheeler evolved from 93 to 2001. He was not the same athletic genetic freak. And Labrada had fallen away into retirement, so I didn't have him as a yardstick to kind of measure my progress with. And Dexter Jackson was coming in as I was on my way out. He was kind of like the last guy that was going to kind of resemble what I thought bodybuilding looked like. And then I'm out. Ronnie takes over, then Jake takes over, and then Phil takes over. And so I complained throughout my career, 22 years, Lee Haney, Dorian Yates, and Ronnie Coleman, 5'10", 250 pounds plus, what I signed up for was just gone. It was wiped away, eradicated from the landscape. And then I retire, and you have the continuation of Jay Cutler, Phil Heath. They give Dexter Jackson a bone in there, and now we've got Shawn Rhoden. There's still a large gap of time where we still haven't gotten back to where I thought we were going to go. And Shawn Rhoden is a small glimpse of kind of where we were, but even then we could pick him apart in a way that we couldn't pick apart Labrada. Shawn's got, for all of his pluses with those big bellowing quadriceps, doesn't have the tricep, doesn't have the biceps, doesn't have the pec fullness. Shoulders are a little bit overpowering. The lower back's kind of, we can look at Mr. Olympia and pick him apart. Whereas in the past, we could say he just bloated in the midsection. You couldn't talk shit on Ronnie Coleman except for the stomach, but he had those arms, he had the splits in the biceps, he had the crispy hamstring separation and the Christmas tree and the size. You could take away a couple of things, but you couldn't take away the title because it was just so overwhelming. I'm hoping we're moving in a direction where this Mr. Olympia title starts to change hands more often. We start to see different looks. We start to reward individual progress. We don't get caught up with cannibalizing our sport because we've got this one look right here. Look, Shawn Rhoden's been beaten by all of them. William Bonek. If William Bonek can beat Shawn Rhoden, William Bonek can beat Mr. Olympia. Rolling Winkler's coming on strong. He was third in Mr. Olympia, and he just won over in Prague. Doesn't have the best physique, but they've all kind of taken turns beating each other. And so it brings us to, are we writing Phil Heath off into the pasture? Let me just, some words of advice. I told your boy Dave, if I'm Phil Heath, there's nothing left here. Wrestle. Go out the way you kind of came in. Phil's first Olympia, he was 4th place.
Mm-hmm.
His next Olympia, he was 2nd. And then he won that sucker, held on to it for 7 years, and now he just got 2nd. So he hasn't become better along the way. And have we ever seen Mr. Olympia get better towards the end? Ronnie Coleman was at his worst when he won his last one. He was at his worst. Dorian Yates, he was at his absolute worst when he won his last one.
Yeah.
Lee Haney was at his best, but Lee Haney was 31 years old.
He was young. Yeah.
Phil doesn't have that advantage. And, of course, we've seen Dexter for the last 10 years chasing a ghost, trying to get that title back when he won it in 2008. Mm-hmm. And now Father Time is putting Dexter kind of in his place. No one beats Father Time. So what's left for Phil? There's really nothing else to prove on the Olympia stage. But you got to be careful because what makes you can break you. And Jay Cutler went out with the bicep injury, and Ronnie, all those surgeries. And the only thing waiting for Phil is an accident or an injury to come back to try to win something that he's had for so many years. I mean, I pray that he just decides to get on with his life because there's so much life after 40. I got out at 36 years old. He's going to be 40 soon. He's done a great job financially. He's done a great job representative-wise, but I don't want to see him go in like Muhammad Ali and get beat by some guys that should never beat him. Yeah, I don't want to see William Bonek beat Phil Heath. I don't want to see Rolly Winkler take Phil Heath out at the Olympia because Phil decides he wants to come back and do a different show. Mm-hmm. I mean, if he's smart to keep his legacy intact, find a way to get off that stage. Probably take a year off. You take a year off, it's going to be very hard to come back.
It's hard, yeah.
If he takes a year off, he's done. Mm-hmm. Jay Cutler can tell you the worst thing that he ever did was took that 1 year off.
Yeah.
But it was also the best because he got a glimpse of what's possible in terms of life. And you see Jay now, he's
brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like a freaking ambassador. Phil could be that guy in a way that he probably doesn't think possible because he's been this machine for so many years. I was there, Joe. His first pro win was the show I put on in Colorado in 2006. Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting in his apartment, and he wanted to get married. Don't do it, bro. You're never going to be home. I mean, it's going to be a grind. And actually, a lot of bodybuilders try to be married during their careers, with the exception of Lee Haney and Labrada, fail. And it's because they're in love with their career. It's not because they don't love the person they're with. But bodybuilding is selfish.
It's consuming.
It's consuming. Sure. It's selfish. And where do you find time for love in that when you're all about your meals and your training and your contest? So he went through that trial and tribulation, but he went through it 10 years after.
Yeah.
And 5 or 6 Olympia titles. So I'm hoping that Phil finds the balance that life has to offer post Olympia and move on.
Yeah.
And Shawn Rhoden, I give the same advice. Shawn, you're Mr. Olympia. That's why you started bodybuilding. You took 7 years off. You won the North Americas. You did the right thing and buried your dad when he was sick and ill. Mm-hmm. You won the Arnold Classic over in Spain. He's had a great career. Now, for some people, it's like, hey, that $400,000 check, I need to go back to the well. I got a kid, and there's nothing left for Shawn Rhoden on that Olympia stage except for defeat. Mm-hmm. I like what he brought this year. He came up from last year, but as Shawn will tell you, there's always challenges. He broke his jaw. He had the freaking he had the hernia thing. Mm-hmm. He had his kid. He had to move. There's nowhere to go, Shawn, except put your feet up by the pool like me. Look, Chris Dickerson and Samir Banu. Who else? Oh, and Dexter Jackson. I think those are three guys that only won it once.
Yep.
That's all you have to win it. Not only did you beat the champion, you did it in a fashion that you got a standing ovation when Bob Chick said, does anybody disagree? Nobody disagreed. Yeah. Now you go back, I guarantee you could be window dressing because all the things were lined up for Shawn this year. Phil was off. Had Phil been on, he would have been 8-time Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
And really, the only thing we complained about Phil was his stomach. And he was coming back from a double hernia. I mean, I haven't seen very many people get better. Look at Dennis Wolf. Where's he at?
Yeah, injuries took a toll, and he's up there also. Age-wise in bodybuilding, it's almost like NFL. I mean, it's hard to go at it full blast at those later times and years. So my point is, all right, you're Mr. Olympia. What do you do? Well, go to Disneyland, dude. Start making plans. You got somehow, some way, at some stage, you have to make plans for life after. Monetize that title. Become the ambassador that it comes with. Make the money that you can make from it.
find a way to give back, find a way to coach, find a way to make yourself accessible in a way that you couldn't because you were training and all that other stuff, and be a dad and do the things that you couldn't do. You know, look at Lee Haney. He's made that transition.
Sure, yeah.
And he did it when he was 31. So Shawn sticks around. There's nothing but injury. There's nothing but losses. And that's my personal take. And see, when I say stuff like that, his army of fans are going to come from it. Phil's fans, Hani Ramban's going, no, that's my bread and butter. I need Phil to go back. I got, you know, so people are going to have their opinions. But I'm telling you, I didn't get this far in life being stupid.
No, you've been there, done that. You knew when it was time to hang him up, you know, and even though you still were chasing that Sandow, you still knew it was the right time for you to hang it up. The best Shawn Ray that was on stage was on stage. Could you have gone on for another 4 years? Of course you could have. But maybe you didn't feel that you were going to be at your best in those years following 36.
Yeah, and, you know, I didn't want to be there for the Ronnie Coleman retirement party, which happened 4 years after I retired. Those guys don't have the same scenario in front of them, but the age is there.
Yeah.
And the injury factor is there. It doesn't get easier from here on. It gets harder.
Wouldn't it be great if you could have a cheat meal without having a cheat meal? Well, now you can. The guys over at Master-Rice have come up with these Rise Buddy snacks. 0 grams trans fat, made with brown rice, gluten-free, baked not fried. It's like putting your hand into a big bag of crap potato chips, but coming out with something that tastes better and is good for you. My favorite is the pizza for obvious reasons. Check out Rise Buddy over at master-rice.com.
My comments about Dallas McCarver. I'm not some type of psychic, but as soon as he got on board with the Chad and was combining that with Aaron Singerman, that is a Molotov cocktail that was waiting to frickin' explode. And Dallas is hungry in his youth. If Dallas had just chilled out for 2 years, which Jay Cutler did when he was young. Jay won the Nationals. He took some time and let himself grow. He didn't just jump into the Olympia. He went to the Night of Champions. And he took his time, and he knew his time would come. Dallas wanted it. And, you know, you had Aaron Singerman going, here's your car, here's your supplements, here's your products. And you had Chad going, look, I did it with Ronnie Coleman, and I can do it with you. Come on. And the guy didn't have a compass to measure where to pump the brakes because everybody's going, Dallas. It's like being at a party. You're doing a beer bong, and everybody's like, drink.
Yeah.
You know, you got some chick with her tits in your face, drink. You say, ah! And the next thing you know, you're like, it all comes back up, right?
Yeah.
So the party that's taking place in the stomach is going to come up. It's not going to be pretty. And when I saw that, I knew what I was looking at in Pittsburgh. And the venom that came from Dallas was fed to him. It came from the Chad. It came from Aaron Singerman because me and Dallas were on good terms.
Yeah.
And what I said was very constructive. And I know in Dallas's quiet time, when he went back to watch it, he probably thought, "What the fuck was I doing in Pittsburgh?"
He agreed with you on it. I'm sure
he did, and he told me in Australia, "You should have called me to find out what was wrong." And I said, "After the fact, I'm going to call you after you put this on YouTube." I didn't put it on YouTube.
Yeah,
your camp did. So I don't even want to call myself a critic, but as an observer, I'm like, what the fuck am I watching? This is the guy I thought was going to be Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
Why would he do? Wait, he didn't do it. His people did it.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas was drove to Pittsburgh. His sponsor put him in that position. They videotaped that. His coach knew that he was sick. Dallas said he'd been throwing up for a couple of weeks. Well, if you're fucking throwing up for a couple of weeks, why are you going to pose for Jim Mannion? What did you expect Jim Mannion to tell you? Jim Mannion was looking at him like this. What the fuck am I?
Yeah. And
what advice do you want me to give you right now, Dallas? Now, mind you, I said after I critiqued him, this is a guy that could suck it up in a couple of weeks and be very competitive because he got 8th place to Cedric's 7th place in the Olympia. And this is going to be a 2-man contest. And that contest turned out to be a 2-man show. Cedric won because of his maturity. Dallas showed glimpses of possibilities. And so with that 2nd place, he managed to make himself through that Arnold Classic. He should have went home and shut it down. Instead, he went to New Zealand by himself without his coach, still sick, still coughing, or whatever the heck he said. He had bronchitis. This was that party taking place in his stomach from all the shit that he was taking. And he had a coach that was a competent coach. and he had a supplement company guy that claims to know what products his athletes should be taking. And that Molotov cocktail was working its magic in New Zealand. And then when he was sick over there in New Zealand, he's sick over there in New Zealand, and Brandon Curry beat him. He just says, "Oh, I'm going to go to Australia." His coach isn't with him. His guru's not with him. He's already claimed to be throwing up weeks in advance. He's been sick and all this other shit. And he winds up in Australia, and that's where he collapsed, right? So he collapses in Australia. He doesn't want to talk to me because I'm talking shit. I went back and I watched. I'm like, where was I talking shit at? I'm trying to find it. I was critiquing him. And then all of his minions come in. Shawn Ray, he's an asshole. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Shawn's a hater. And then Dallas is sitting there with his coach, with his nutritionist who's writing the check, giving him the bill. We can't work in muscular development with somebody like Shawn Ray, and Shawn Ray should be fired from muscular development for criticizing one of my athletes. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? I'm talking about a future Olympia guy, and I got a coach, supplement guy who's got money invested in it. He reminded me of Don King. Don King's got his athlete in there, Mike Tyson, the heavyweight champion. Tyson gets knocked out, and Don King's over there with Buster Douglas. Come over here, man. We're going to make you a... Yeah, so here he is he's feeding this little kid this information about me being the negative guy. But I went back and watched the wisdom I gave Dallas, and if Dallas had to shut it down after Australia, he'd have been fine. He wound up going on to guest pose against Jim Mannion's wishes at the Emerald Cup in April. When Dallas showed up in April, this is after the collapse in March in Australia, he looked like he was 315 pounds. Now, when I say shut it down, Joe, what I was talking about is get clean, stay away from the gym, wait until next year's Arnold Classic, and come back out of the box. Instead, you got obligations. You got your supplement guy saying, hey, we need to get back on stage. And you got your guru going, hey, you'll be fine. Let's just have a good offseason. He blew up. The heart got big, and all the Molotov cocktail stuff decided, you know what, dude? We're going to shut you down. And that took me back to December prior to the Arnold Classic, where I said, this is a recipe for disaster. I was sick when I heard the news that he died. I wasn't surprised when Piana died. Piana didn't surprise me. But I was really surprised with Dallas because he just had too many yes men and kept him away from people that could give a moral compass. Like, I was nowhere in that camp. And I even believe somewhere along the lines that, that venom that was fed to Dallas about me filtered over into Flex Lewis and a few other people that I'm this hater. And really what I am is that I'm an observer. And sometimes when you observe the truth, people don't like the truth, and you wind up on an island. So I sat back and watched that happen. And, it sickened me that none of the bodybuilders went to Dallas McCarver's funeral. Of course, I wasn't invited to Dallas's funeral. I'm sure he probably told his mom and his girlfriend and all of his fans that, he was a fan of mine coming up, and I'm talking shit about him, and why would I do this? And then the guy freaking dies unceremoniously. How do I go pay my respects to somebody that I said in a couple of years, this kid's going to be Mr. Olympia? Now, that was the reality, looking at the potential. But you know what, dude? If you're this young kid and I give you a Ferrari and I give you some gas money and I don't tell you, be careful, there's a speed limit here, right? Don't put all your money in the gas tank, and then you go out and you put a fucking nitrous oxide on it, and you're on the Autobahn, and then you crash and burn. I mean, it was an accident ripe to happen, and we could probably predict it based on the people in his camp. So where were they? Guess what? The Chad didn't go to the funeral. I don't believe that Aaron Singerman was even at the funeral. So my point is that the very people that helped make this guy disappeared when he's gone. Where were they? I mean, I'm still here critiquing people and analyzing people, and at the end of the day, it's just my opinion. But I had no impact on Dallas's career in terms of it going the way that it did. But Stevie Wonder could see that if he continued down that road, he wasn't going to live a long and fruitful life. And when that happened, it was tragic. It still bothers me to this day that those two guys are still in business doing what they do.
Shut up and sit down.
time for a little light workout outside. With no whisk, get the workout done at home. Have a great one.
With Shawn Ray TV, I'm not, I mean, I never had to answer to anyone anyways, but I can now get behind the stories. I can also find the Where Are They Now features I always wanted to do with muscular development. I never got an opportunity to do it properly, but there's a lot of athletes doing a lot of different things, good and bad, that guys our age, we want to know where the hell they are. They disappeared, even the girls. So I've got this feature, Where Are They Now, that I'll be, on the couch. I'll be in their homes, showing their kids and their families and where they're at now and how they're either contributing or getting away from our industry. And then there's also the business of bodybuilding. I use that phrase a lot because there's more to bodybuilding than just what we see on a stage. For example, do you realize that like the tanning business and the bikini manufacturing business, it's like $1 billion industry. Think of how many athletes are competing, how many have to put that coloring on, how many girls have to buy those $1,000 bikinis. How much money is being made in the hair and makeup? It's $150 for somebody to look at you and put on the hair and the makeup. And you got a show like the North Americas with 1,100 athletes in it. Yeah. So let me talk to a promoter who was almost out of business and bankrupt, who's now got 1,100 athletes paying $250 a division. There's a lot of things that people may want to get into in terms of life after bodybuilding. How do you secure sponsorships? How do you put a valuation on your physique to be a guest poser? What do you charge for a seminar? Who's going to give you these advices? So there's an area in Shawn Ray TV where I can actually educate. And so Shawn Ray TV is going to be much more of an educational network, not so much a contest covering network. Maybe you're talking about covering content. I'll cover some contests on a skeletal basis. I mean, that's something that's kind of playing out of result in there. But I think there's a lot more human interest stories that working for Generation Iron and muscular development, I wasn't able to tell. And now I can take the camera places. If I got my camera with me, wherever I'm at, I can get the story. And so travel the world. I eat at a lot of different restaurants. Bodybuilders travel all the time. So right now I'm in Laguna Beach. I don't know if you can see the scenery, but I'm going to share it with you at a restaurant over here. Some people that might want to come out here to California and come out here to Laguna Beach, they may want to know where to eat at, right? They might want to know where's the nice spot by the ocean where they can kind of hang out and grab a bite to eat. Well, I'll start doing some food reviews from restaurants. I stay in a lot of different hotels around the world. I'll start doing some hotel reviews to give you guys an idea what's the best hotel to stay at. And being a contest promoter, Joe, I'm not sure if you're aware, but I had my first Shawn Ray Classic in Hawaii, and it was the biggest one they had in 25 years. And I was able to donate some money to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I recognized the U.S. military because it was Veterans Day, so I gave out 4 military awards to people that had 20 years invested in the military. This year, I took it from the hotel situation, the ballroom. I put it in the convention center. There hasn't been a bodybuilding show in the Hawaii Convention Center since 2005, I think it was, or 2003. So taking it into a bigger place. I'm bringing the legend trainer, bodybuilder, Chris Cormier's coming. Michael Hearn's going to be our guest poser. I've got Mr. Olympia, Samir Banu coming. These are people that the Hawaiians, they're on an island. They don't get to see these people. And now through the help of Jim Mannion and the support of the Federation, anybody from anywhere can come over to Hawaii and compete in my show. And the kicker is 3 of my overall champions. There's 6 of them, but 3 of them, our judges will determine who will go over to China 2 weeks later to compete in an IFBB Pro qualification show. So normally they would have to wait and do next year's nationals in Miami. And you're in freaking Hawaii. It's a 10-hour flight to get to Florida. Now they can win my show 2 weeks later, beat China and win, and they can have a pro card. So I'm creating opportunities. And I was just granted with a second show March 30th over in Maui, another island. So I have a secondary show coming on over there. So there's some good things happening. I launched my website, shawnray.fitness. That has everything on it. I'll be doing some online consultations. I'll be doing some VIP personal training. I got my little clothing thing going on there, my virtual site. And now I'm in a place where I'm able to give back, and I have the time. And in 2019, I'll be opening the gym, Shawn Ray. It's called The Gym. It's a franchise. My buddy George Jackson, he's now got a franchise from the World's Gym family. He's converted over to the gym, and we're going to be moving that. I'll be taking over a personal studio that we're creating through the help of one of my sponsors, Real Leader Equipment USA. They have a brand of equipment that they're bringing into the market, and I'll be help facilitating through the gym. It'll be here in Orange County, where I live, somewhere. That'll be all over the website too. So I got a lot of moving parts, a lot of great things happening. And if you're a media person, you can't tell the bad without telling the good. I mean, the Arnold Classic, 4 days, 22,000 people, 22,000 athletes, 200,000 fans. The Mr. Olympia giving away more prize money in the history of its existence. There's a flip side to that, Joe, and we have to tell both sides of the story. Whereas the GBO and the NABA, the IFBB Pro Elite, they're not giving away that kind of money. They're not creating those kinds of opportunities. Listen, there's a lot of people I had to stay away from while I worked for certain companies. Dave helped me get a job at Muscular Development. But when they let him go, or when they fired him, I couldn't maintain a relationship with Dave because he just got fired from the company I'm working for reasons that were detrimental to the company. So for almost 10 years, I didn't have a relationship with Colombo. But Dave never did anything to me. You said something critical, or at least I thought you did. I'm like, F you. You and I didn't talk for I don't know how long. And I'm sure there's people there's probably, yeah, what I'm saying. There's probably people, listen, there's all kinds of, and this is where age comes in. There's all kinds of people that have conceptions or misconceptions of who you are, what you stand for, why you said what you said. Trust me, my mouth might have cost me Olympia more than my physique. There's not one individual on that judging panel that I hold responsible for that because it's a collection of opinions. Wayne DeMille was never a Shawn Ray friend. He was a foe, and he ran the show. I mean, I got in an argument with him backstage at the 96 Olympia and Weinberger because Dorian Yates was in a freaking private room pumping up before we got ready to compete. So, I mean, I wasn't making a lot of friends in what I did, but at the end of the day, as you get older, you find ways to bridge these gaps, and you find a way to try to coexist. And I think you get more honey you catch more bees with honey. So I'm always going to keep it real and 100, especially when I'm analyzing the Olympia and I'm doing these types of interviews with you. I'm not going to kiss anybody's ass, but if you look like crap, if you show up with gyno, if you got synthol in your body, I'm going to call you out on that shit every day. I know they tried to censor me when Michael Lockett showed up on the Mr. Olympia stage. I think it was a year ago. They're like, you can't say the word gyno or bitch tits. I go, that's what it is. So if he's going to show up at the Mr. Olympia, he's going to show up with the Mr. Olympia with bitch tits or gyno, I'm going to call it because that's what it is. Our viewing audience, listen, don't hire me to talk for my opinion and then tell me what to say. I got my whole appearance schedule on the ShawnRay.fitness site. My next appearance is going to be in San Diego at the Fit Show. I host seminars with other up-and-coming athletes, some that are already highly decorated. But the Fit Expo, I work with them doing these seminars. And then after that, the Shawn Ray Classic, November 10th in Hawaii. Then the Hidetori Yamagishi Japan IFBB Pro Qualifier, November the 17th. And then I wind up in Sonia, China on November the 30th, December 1st, and seeing a show out there, and I'll wrap things up at the end of the year. Working on an East Coast muscle camp. I'll let you know when that's done, and I'll keep you posted on that. But I gotta get some food. Shawn Ray TV, ShawnRay.tv, ShawnRay.fitness. West Coast.
Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see our troubles are on the train. You wanna be where everybody knows your name. You wanna go where people know people are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name.
Now, what we want you to do is, we missed a Kodak moment, using an old phrase. Let it make that comparison once again.
Oh, to his feet?
Yes.
Yeah,
This is a Kodak moment.
it's a Kodak moment.
Okay.
Now his name is Shoesmith.
This will have to go in the magazine.
Yeah, this has to go in the
This
magazine.
has to go in the magazine.
No comparison.
Now, which foot is sexier?
This one. By a country mile. By a country mile.
Even if they weren't, they'd be sexier. No
I need
offense.
an angle grinder now to cut my toes. I don't know about his. I wouldn't touch it. Robbie, I need an angle grinder to cut my toenails.
My fingers though, like my fingers. I've always
You
got
never had a
that.
guy come on your feet.
Yeah,
That's
I have.
true.
Actually, I have.
You're being
How do you
straight,
say
girl?
they're ugly?
I do.
You want a guy to come on your feet tonight?
I don't know.
Sorry, Steve.
I did not say all of that.
He heard the magic
I
word.
did not say all of that.
He's like, wait, what? What?
But we all are in agreement.
We're in
No,
agreement.
you. No. I
We're in
don't.
agreement.
We're in agreement. Your feet are much sexier than
sexier.
Shoesmith's.
Of course.
Even crystals are, yeah.
Crystal.
They're passable.
You know, she has a
They're
beautiful
passable.
feet. Listen, but you know what the longer toe means, right?
What?
Oh, the longer toe means on a woman that you're like the
Freak.
the ruler. Listen, the freak and the ruler of the house. Google
is
it.
true.
Google
That
it.
is true.
Google it. I swear to God.
Just ask him.
I mean, Google it.
We can find out right. We need to go to it. We have Google right there. Google Rich.
I swear. If I Google that right
Would you
now,
come on a
it's
feet
gonna
ride?
come up, I
It's
swear.
funny. I think I've heard that.
Yeah. I've always been insecure about my little second toe until I heard I'm a Leo.
Okay, I got you.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm like, oh, I'm the ruler? Like, oh.
One the face, one on the dick.
I guess.
Done.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you have proven yourself
Thank you.
to have the most, compared to Shoesmith, the most beautiful feet.
Yeah, I
In
don't
Las
have the
Vegas.
most beautiful feet. I've seen beautiful feet. No, listen, I've always been insecure about my feet, and I would say that on camera with no problem, like for real, like I'm
Until
on
she
a
saw
flutter.
those.
Yeah,
Then
and
she had,
And then she was like, she whipped it out.
she goes, those are work boot feet.
I'm like, those are work show mine's on camera. 'cause
She
I've
had
never
the
shown them on
10-inch
camera
cock
before.
compared to the Irish and Chink crowd.
Without boots.
Those are work show them on camera before, because I
Those
never
are
show one
work
on
boot
camera.
feet without boots.
Well, we give you, in the challenge of Steve Shoesmith's foot challenge,
Yes.
you have prevailed.
She's the winner tonight.
Absolutely.
By far.
Okay.
The crown. That's it for us this week on MSTV. Make sure you check out our store page where you can get single issues or subscriptions or t-shirts or patches and all of that good stuff. Speaking of t-shirts, oldschooliron.com has a great store page. You can get some awesome t-shirts like this one that my buddy Darren hooked me up with. But thank you once again for oldschooliron.com for being the title sponsor of our 2018 Olympia Vacation. We will see you guys in a week.